Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Aamar. So Aamar, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
My name is Aamar. I live in Austin. I just moved from Toronto about a year and a half ago, and I run a startup called Modgarden, helping people grow organic food indoors.
Awesome. So how did you go about starting your company?
It's a little bit of a story. When I got sick way back, actually, I've been sick, but as my life progressed,
I guess if you can just get into just telling us, how you started the company.
Yeah. So as far back as I can remember, as I was saying, I got sick, or I was sick, but I didn't even know it. It's one of those things where when in your early life, a headache or a dry skin is just innocuous, and you just learn to take a pill or moisturize your skin, and you move on. But by the time I graduated university, my headaches had turned into full-blown migraines, so debilitating that I used to end up in the ER. And they used to pump me with Demerol and codeine, for example, to so I could get relief. And many times I didn't get relief because it was just so far gone. And then there was the eczema. Also, it had become so chronic that when I used to pick up my briefcase, my palms would tear. And so as I began to look into what it was, somebody gave me minerals. Somebody gave me magnesium, for instance. And after a few months, my ailments went away. And I'm like, well, what are minerals? What's magnesium? And where does it come from? And that began a journey in trying to understand where our food's coming from, what is soil, what is farming today, and what I found mortified me, and so I decided to take this into my own hands and make it my purpose after my Wall Street career.
That's amazing. So, what were your biggest challenges when starting your business?
Wow. So we're running. It's just fraught with challenges. We're running a hardware startup. Which is very different than a software startup. A hardware startup, you have to actually build something that costs money, and you don't know if you should spend the money to build it. So what we did was we iterated, and that was one thing. So we had to iterate several times. And then there were horrific moments where, we had a show coming up at noon the next day, and I'm in the exhibit hall filing down shelves to make the drawers fit. And the other part of it is that today, in a climate where the investor is more apt to invest in software SaaS type startups, Airbnb, the Facebooks of the world and all that. These are non-hardware, these are non-thing stuff, non-thing ventures. People just want more of that. And so when I come there and it's a traditional SaaS investor or software investor, they're like, wow, this is so cool. They look at my startup and say, wow, this is really cool. I really like what you're doing. It's different from what I'm investing in. But then when they go back and they sit down and they analyze the numbers and the ROI, they're like, I can make so much more money. There's like so little headache in investing in a software startup. It's just a straight line up, provided it takes after crossing over the commercialization line. Whereas in a hardware, there's constant investment in updating the product, like the iPhone. You're constantly updating, and people just shy away from that. So it's a very particular investor that I'm in search of. That's probably the biggest challenge I'm having right now, because I'm sitting in Austin actually, and Austin is a tech hub. So a lot of Silicon Valley is moving here, and a lot of would-be software investors are moving here. So I'm just having to broaden my horizon a little bit. So I would say, those are probably the top two or three off the top of my head. But as I mentioned, it's fraught with challenges, one after the other, every single day. Every single day.
Okay, cool, cool. So how do you measure the success for your business?
Well, we're still a pre-seed, so we haven't commercialized yet. So along the way, I'll give you one clear example. Along the way, I have this, what I think is a brilliant idea to create a product like an appliance. It's basically an appliance, and I believe it's the next appliance after the microwave or the oven or the fridge, that's going to become popular, growing food at home. So how do you determine if it's going to take or not? Well, the first thing you do is, the first thing that I did was I created a cheap $1,700 prototype made out of wood, and I showed it at a show, at the Home and Garden Show in Toronto. And I got 350 email addresses. And then I was like, okay, that's cool. People like it. People are kind of saying, wow. And then I went back, and for the next year, we built another one made out of plastic, thinking that the wood, soil and water just don't mix well. Soil, water, and wood just don't mix well. And so I made it out of plastic, and I showed that, and people were like, yeah, that's cool. And I said, well, now give me $50. So I upped the ante a little bit. And so we got, I think 140 people to put down $50 deposits. I'm like, okay, I've got something here. And so went back and decided to raise money against it, $300,000, invested that, and produced another one. And this time I said, I'm charging full price. And so we charged the $400, and we got 40 people to. So different things have different success. In hardware, it's adoption. Are people going to buy? Who is going to buy? Who is your niche and all that? So that's how, in this particular example, in a very practical hardware example, this is how we measure success.
Great. And by the way, do you have competitors?
So our competitors are indoor growing systems or indoor plant growing systems. We're very different. So we're an indoor vertical farming system, but 99% of the indoor plant growing systems that are out there use a synthetic or a chemical basis to grow their plants. So it's like keeping a brain dead patient alive. What do you feed a brain dead patient? You feed it the bare minimum to keep the heart going. It's lying there. Does it have vitality? No. You're feeding it slop, but it's alive. You can claim it to be alive. It's a body. Yeah. It looks like a body, so it must be, alive and a body. But it doesn't have vitality. Does it have energy? Is it looking good? Does it have vividness does it have a complexion? And the answer is no. What is health? And so what we're doing is we're growing food for better health with plants that have better nourishment. And the only way to do that is, as I mentioned, the previous one was but synthetic or chemical. We're doing it biologically. 100 years ago, we used to grow plants biologically, meaning in living soil. And so our differentiation from our competitors is that, yes, we're a vertical farming system, but we grow food using a biological basis.
Cool. So how technology is helping your business in all aspects?
So there's two aspects of our technology. There's the software aspect and there's the hardware aspect, of course.
Yeah.
Building the product is the main thing in hardware. I can address software. That's much easier to do. So, we came across an engineering and industrial design firm, and different people have different philosophical approaches on how to do things. All I wanted to know was, I want the product to be beautiful. I want the product to be solid. It has to be a kit completely assembled when it gets delivered like a microwave. And it should be modular from a manufacturing standpoint. And so those are challenges. that I presented to manufacturing concerns or industrial designers. And so, it's the experience. Does the industrial designer have the experience to be able to build something with my demand level? And that's been the hardest part of it. And so there are certain people or manufacturers that will say, we can create the molding tool and build this with 4 tools right from the get-go. And then there are other people that say, and that requires very high upfront cost or investment. There are other people that say, no, you don't have to do it that way. You can just use one tool and then do the other one in this way and this way, 3D print, and then this way and this way. So there's various pieces of tech that are out there, and we're aware of them. What is the right mix and philosophical approach or technological approach that we're still finalizing at the moment.
Yeah. So this is giving me a sense like you are facing more challenges in hardware side than the software.
The software is a much easier nut to crack. In the beginning, we're just going to have one page, like an app that has one page and some rudimentary clicks just to deliver the product. And then in a subsequent version, we're going to introduce AI. We're going to be introducing blockchain because people want to know where their food is coming from. And so our soil ingredients are sourced from multiple sources. Are those sources toxic or are they pure? And so we're going to be applying blockchain to that. So yes, there's complexity in both. We're choosing to handle the complexity on the hardware side first and make the capital investment there, and then we'll do the rest afterwards.
So how blockchain is helping you?
Well, we haven't begun that yet, but the way blockchain will help us is people want to know, people want transparency. So I have different suppliers for different soil ingredients. So I've got something called worm castings, I've got mushroom compost, I've got other types of compost, I've got paper compost, I've got kelp, and I have other ingredients that are coming in, some sand perhaps. Where is it coming from? What are the sources? Because right now, if I were to come to anyone and say, where did your soil come from? And I did an analysis, half the soil is from multiple parts of the soil are from a chemical basis.
Yeah.
A fertilizer is a human input. And if it's a human input, then it's a chemical or synthetic basis. It's been made by humans. But if it's biological, we want to know where it's coming from. And so we want our customers to know that our sources were purely raw and biological.
Okay.
That's important.
Okay. Yeah. This is a great idea. Like using blockchain over there to make sure which thing is from where. So good.
Yeah.
So do you think AI can also help your business to do some magics? Like, is there anything in your mind like you are thinking about if this magic happens, it will be a drastic change?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're sitting in Tokyo, I'm in Austin, and there's somebody else sitting in Pakistan, for instance. We're all growing basil, but only one of us is growing basil in the most nutritious way. Because your environment variables, your temperatures are different, your humidity levels are different, the watering is going to be different, etc. We can come back to you using AI across hundreds and hundreds of installments or thousands of installments and say, Qasim, if you increase the temperature of your tiny farm by 1 degree centigrade, you can improve the mineralization of the basil by 10%. That's what we're doing.
Nice. That's a great idea indeed. And yes, I'm from Pakistan.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
You just mentioned it. I'm happy about it.
Okay.
Okay. So, do you think, or do you think like the most important skills or qualities are required to start a business like yours? It's pretty
There's a
hard.
sorry.
It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard, I think, but
Yeah. Well, there's a number of factors that need to be true.
Mhm.
The first factor is that if you come up with an idea, that idea has to be something that's demanded by the community that you're going to service. So if you live in a community, whether it's a local community or whether it's a global community that like everybody wants to serve a global community, or whether it's a North American community or whether it's a Middle Eastern community, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So I chose food. That's a global problem. Toxic food
Yeah.
is a global problem.
Yeah.
I also have to be passionate about food. I have to be passionate about why did I choose food. So that does it energize me to work on a product that's related to food. So that's
Mhm.
two factors. So I chose something that the community wants, every single day, or every so often. And am I interested? Am I energized by it? And then I think the third thing would be your approach has to be systematic. You can't just go about wildly and say, okay, I'm going to help people grow food. And then your approach has to be, okay, well, today I have very few resources. So I'm going to do this. And then the next thing I'll do this. And then I'll raise money. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and run a project plan. So you want to set that up kind of loosely in the beginning. And whatever you set up on day one, it's all wrong by month two. It's never going to follow that trajectory. But in order for you to score the goal, you have to establish a goal. And even if the goalposts move, which in every startup they are constantly moving, you have to be able to be nimble with that. So it has to be a systematic and organized approach. For
Mhm.
those three things have to be true in order for you to run a successful startup.
Awesome.
Cool.
So what would you say are your top priorities in the next 3 to 6 months?
I'm just going to go right to it. It's going to be sales. We're on a war path right now to generate sales. We're still pre-revenue. We haven't commercialized yet. So we're going to start pre-sales on Kickstarter. So I'm basically in the throes right now of launching a Kickstarter campaign. And before we launch a Kickstarter campaign, there's a whole bunch of work that needs to be done. It's probably 2 months or 3 months of work that needs to be done to generate the interest in the Kickstarter campaign. And so we're like last night, we were trying to pull the trigger last night, but we couldn't. We ended up with some challenge. So we're partnering with an agency and we're basically going to launch it. That's our next big thing. So our goals is to do a multi-7-figure Kickstarter campaign. And we think given the narrative in the world, what's going on in food production, what's going on in health, we're primed to have a successful Kickstarter campaign.
Awesome. So in terms of launching this campaign and getting the word out, what is that going to look like for you?
So we're partnering with an agency that has a very interesting scheme. And the scheme is that they create a reservation. They already have a list of 7 million emails of people that have pre-purchased or have purchased product on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So we don't have to go out and market for those people. So what we're going to do is we're going to test that list, not all of them, but we're going to test segments of that list by creating a landing page or a splash page that says, hey, there's a product that's going to be launched on Kickstarter. Would you like to reserve the lowest price for $1? And so we're going to determine how many people are interested. And so our goal is to get 3,000 to 5,000 of those emails. And that's a $1 million campaign.
That's cool. So if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you expect things to be for Modgarden?
We will have over 5,000 products sold. We would have just been coming off of manufacturing. We would be delivering those products. We would have operations set up in the US and in Europe where we're formulating the soil, bagging it, and then sending it out because we have a subscription model. You purchase the product and then you subscribe to the soil and the seeds. And we would be bagging it and sending out soil and seeds to our customers. and then we would be making plans to launch a B2B business.
Awesome. So, in terms of advice, for people that haven't started a business, that are thinking about being entrepreneurs, what is the number one piece of advice? Something that you wish you knew before you got started?
Wow. So on the day or the month or so that the initial months that I started this, I thought that I would be running a Kickstarter campaign within 6 months of the idea. And we're here 5.5 years later. So whatever you conceive of, in terms of timeline, multiplied by 5. Running a startup is very hard. And I don't know if I would have started it knowing where I am today, because I've spent all of my money doing this. I don't think I would do anything else. This is it. I'm going to do this. I'm so far into it that the cost is so sunk that I'm into it, that it's my purpose. It's intrinsically who I am. And so I'm going to do this. But had I not understood how difficult it was going to be now, I either wouldn't have done it, but because you can't really know in hindsight, I might have brought on a co-founder earlier. It's hard. So don't be delusioned that it's going to be easy. It's very hard, and you just have to set up for a multi-year investment in yourself.
That's great. So, just to wrap, do you mind sharing your website or the best way that somebody can reach out to you and find your company?
Sure. Our website is modgarden.com. So that's modgarden.com. And probably we're on most of the big social channels, the 3 major ones: Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I guess the best way to connect with us is through Instagram, the Modgarden Instagram/Modgarden. And you can get in touch with us that way. And I would say that you should look out for the campaign. We're getting ready to launch the pre-campaign, and get your reservations in.
Awesome. Well, Aamar, thank you so much. We're rooting for you, wishing Modgarden the best of luck. And yeah, thanks again for your time.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Thanks, Aamar.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.